Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges, and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Florian Bourquin. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. I'm so sorry.
That was close enough.
Was that close enough? Hi, Florian.
Hello. Yeah.
How do I pronounce your last name?
Bourquin.
Okay, I'm not going to try.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Florian is a Swiss pastry chef based in Taiwan and co-founder of Panoramix Project with Marie, your partner.
Indeed.
Providing professional pastry coaching service as well as menu creation and catering service since 2016.
Yeah.
Florian and I met 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. 6, I think.
Crazy. That's quite a long time. Yeah. We went to a music festival.
Partying.
We went partying. Yeah. That's right. We went partying.
In the wild.
In the wild. On the beach.
On the beach.
In a remote area.
With good music.
And
pao mian.
And instant noodles.
Yeah.
And we somehow kept in touch since.
Yeah.
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 We connected. Curito connects. That's what we do.
Indeed.
And gosh, there's so many fun things lined up for this conversation. So I don't want to go too much into my detail.
We will have to curate it.
We have to curate it. Yeah. I mean, because Florian, you haven't listened to some of the other episodes, but usually I usually give a long intro. I go into details about the person and how we met, et cetera, et cetera. But today, I'm just gonna say that Florian will share his ongoing career path and how it became his life. And I'm just
glad to be able. I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Actually, it's a challenge and an exciting thing to do, I think.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stop here and I'm just gonna let you go. Let's just start with the early days, the beginnings.
Yeah. So why I think it's interesting to go through that. It's not so much to talk about me, but to talk about the options and the possibilities that we get in our lives and how we can follow it or not. And I think what is interesting about this is that my career path is laid on those basics that we are going to talk about. And I think that's inspiring I hope, for others.
I think so.
Yeah.
So how did you choose your path to become a pastry chef, and where did that start, right? Because you didn't study this in school, if I recall correctly.
So, you have to. You don't know that maybe, but the schooling system in Switzerland is very different. So we have many more options, and the apprenticeship path is very, very strong. That means that it's very respected. It's not you're going to do an apprenticeship, so you're low class. No, it's not that. It's actually very strong. It's sponsored by government and corporations, and it's very part of our life. That's what I mean. So when you choose this path, you are proud of doing so. So, but that's not even the beginning. So the beginning is that in my family background, food is not a profession, but it's something that's very, very into our daily life. We would go to local markets, travel all around Europe for food to see, we're going, there in south of France or there in north of Italy or wherever. And we would go to those local markets too, just to find this special ingredient or just to discover whatever there is and bring it back. And that was the gift. If you travel, you just bring me back some spices or some salt or some local fruits or whatever. Yeah. So I think this, of course, is a big influence. But the even more important to begin with was when we would have our family gatherings, we would cook huge meals like Christmas. Let's take Christmas. We're going towards that season now. And we would just meet. Someone of the family would cook, but everyone would bring, I remember my great uncle would do his own smoked salmon, and my uncle would always go in south of France and buy foie gras directly from the producers, and all things like that. So we would just put all this food together and begin at noon and end at 4 a.m. the next day, So it just showed me how powerful is food when you have the right things, you invest your time and money at that time also to have the right things and to just share it together. And because it's good and because it's shared with love, then you just linger in that little bubble that you just created. And I think that's something I was just raised in, and it empowered me to trust my own instincts at that time. From there, as I became closer to teenage, I discovered that, I want to be a cook. So first I wanted to be a cook. Then I had a brief moment I wanted to be a hairdresser somehow. But I was very, very, random. But, so I finished my secondary school, which you would call what?
High school? Is that right?
I don't know, actually. Maybe. I don't know.
High school, right? Like about 16, 17?
Just before, we finish it at 14, 15.
Okay.
And then you go to the next stage. And that's from 15, you can choose the apprenticeship path. And so that last year of school, they were promoting apprenticeship. So I took the opportunity to, they were not only promoting apprenticeship, but for, we call it work of mouth in French, right? Yeah. So like palate, like linked to food, food industry. So we had the opportunity to test 3 different jobs. So I did some pastry. Mm-hmm. I went to for like few days in a bakery also to see the difference, because I was not sure. And I did butchery.
Oh, not hairdressing.
Not hairdressing, no, because it was really only about food industry and butchery. So I went to work in a butchery and learn how to cut meat. And I was 14 years old, and it was very, very interesting. But
you didn't cut your finger, right?
I didn't cut my finger. But I made them a tart because they knew I was very interested in pastry, and they said, for your last day, you have to cook us a tart. It's the tradition, like someone has to bring something. So I did it. And so, already then I knew that, that's, such a pleasure and a luxury for me to bring them something and share it with them. And so I knew I didn't want to do butchery because it only implied me to work with the raw material and sell it, which I thought, that's not me. I need to be more creative, right? Then bakery was a bit too rough, not in terms of too physical, but just not refined enough somehow. And I just decided, okay, I'm going to go to pastry world because I want to be able to prepare food and do the same as when my grandmother is cooking a dish. She's doing something to me that is so powerful that if it's good, then you just stay at the table for hours and keep talking about things that you would not expect. And then you realize that you go to Ava's place and maybe the food is good but not the same, then people just don't linger that long. They just say, oh honey, we're tired, right? We just go home. But it would never happen in our home. Our guests would just stay over and drink more and talk more, and in always like 4 or 5 o'clock when it's like really the end, they say, okay, maybe we should go, So I think this really was the first apprenticeship for me. Yeah.
I like that you said that because it just kind of makes me think that, so the food is, that food is the key ingredient here.
It is, and it's not. I did mention the investment we put in it. I think it's really about how much care you put in your preparation, and when you do that, you feel it when you eat it. It's instantaneous. Like, you feel the love, inside. Right. That brings me back to whenever I work with people in my kitchens, and I keep telling them, and they laugh usually. You have to put love in what you do, and they're like, yeah, whatever you're talking about. But then slowly, you know, people that are open to it just realize how true it is.
Yeah.
That people are influenced by it, and when you are able to give that to someone, you become very powerful, that you can influence them. So the first step was really when I was a kid, before I do my apprenticeship, to realize how powerful is that it made us stay together. Can you imagine that? It's like you make people stay together. It's just like, wow. And that's how I got into this, because it's really not the family job. Family job was in the railway for everyone.
Right.
So I'm just the black sheep going sideways. Yeah.
Well, it's true what you said, and I just want to add to those who are listening is actually, Florian kind of converted me to understand the importance of good pastry.
Yeah,
I think first time we had a conversation about this, you went off on a rant for like hours talking to me about the importance of using the right flour and not refined sugar, and picking the right ingredients just to create that one piece of praline you're eating or that tart you're eating. No fluffy decor with like fondant icing, none of that. It's really about the heart of the ingredient. And for those who haven't tried Florian's creation, I think you'll understand when you do eat your pastries or desserts that there's like a silent moment of like appreciation of like, wow, the texture, the flavors. Okay, I don't feel gross after having one slice of the cake, two slices of the cake. We could finish the whole thing tonight. Because a lot of times these days when you go buy pastries, it can be very heavy. It can, you take a bite and then
sticky.
It's sticky, or like you don't notice, but your glands kind of like tense up a little bit. You don't feel well after you have too many because it's too sweet or too much
I am glad. I am glad you're saying that. Thank you. That's the best compliment I can get.
Right,
actually.
and I've converted my family. My sister now is like
the whole clan.
What is Florian making today? Or next week can we order that cake? So I think there is truth in that, and I think for consumers, we not only just pastry, food in general, right? We need to be aware and more intuitive to that ingredient, that process, and appreciation for that. And hopefully, because of the pandemic, in the last almost 2 years now, with more people being at home cooking, they can understand that more. As
and
well.
I think that resonates even more in the Asian world, I would say, because the youngs here don't cook at all. They don't even know how to boil 水饺, like dumplings. I had this discussion lately with a friend. I'm like, really? How is that possible? You don't even have to do them. You can buy them and boil them. So I think of course it resonates also for back home in Europe. But we have much more this culture of cooking something by ourselves.
Going to the market, the fresh produce,
but anyways, I think we're getting ahead of what we are going to say. I don't want to. I think it's interesting to keep the timeline a little bit. And so from there,
you're doing my job here.
No, but I remind myself.
But yes, no, I wanted to remind.
I didn't mean it that way.
I wanted to insert that comment
but it's
because
completely
I think it's very
true.
important.
It's very, very important.
But yes, we'll continue onward with how your apprenticeship then led you to work with some of the big luxury pastry brands in Europe.
So, like I said, I followed my career is based on my own instinct that at some point I decided to follow. So what is very interesting is that as a kid, I followed it just kind of very naturally, but very naively, and without actually understanding I was actually following my instinct. I was just doing something, that's just me, very simply. And I was, of course, glad that I was supported by my family to do so. Just a small note on that. They'll say, "Oh, well, you want to do that? Sure, but we are not going to wake you up in the morning if you miss your snooze. If you snooze out too long, then well, you're going to be responsible. Even you're only 14 or 15, it's just your responsibility. So they didn't forbid me to do it. That they just said, okay, now you're an adult, you manage your own life. So I also enjoyed that actually. I think it pushed me to become the free mind I am right now. But yeah, so I began that. I did my apprenticeship. I got my skills. I went on to different kind of jobs, different restaurants, and someone mentioned to me Pierre Marcolini in Belgium, which is the high-end chocolate in Belgium, in Europe. He actually just got the best pastry chef in the world award like last year.
Oh, okay.
For his whole career and everything. So I went there without really realizing what I was going to, but I wanted to satisfy another side of my own character. Not ego. No, far from ego. No, I had discovered that, of course, I wanted to be creative, but then I realized that I wanted to be a pastry chef because it's very, very precise, and I love the numbers, I love the precision, I love the delicacy, and that is linking back to my scientific part of myself. Nerd, scientific, I love numbers, math, I watch YouTube videos on physics and stuff like that, just because I like to understand how it works. And by doing so, by going to the luxury world, I would have to perfect my skills so much that it would satisfy this part of myself that is, it's like to the 10th of the gram, you know.
So you would like, no chopsticks then, but you would like pick out.
Yeah, and we have small scales that are like 0.1 gram or 0.01 gram, because some ingredients require that kind of precision. And yeah, so it did satisfy me that side of myself, and also taught me, of course, a whole bunch of other things I didn't know of, like how to manage a kitchen that big, how to be that good, that high level with that many quantity. We were producing thousands of cakes, every day.
And all handmade.
All handmade.
Right?
Of course, we had machines to help. You have mixers and you have dough sheeters, but either that it's just men and women, of course, working. So it's a tough world. You cannot say the opposite. When you master it, it's just so beautiful, because again, then you work in a company that supplies so many families, and then your pride, or at least mine, was not only just because I was under that name and I ended up to be the head pastry chef of that brand. I had, of course, part of my pride was coming from that, but it was much more driven by the fact that I was delivering so many families that would trust me without knowing me to deliver them joy. And I think that's the power I was talking about before. Like, they don't know that there's a seed in that cake that might have them have this discussion that they don't know of with someone that they are inviting for that dinner. And I hope they would linger longer because of me. They have maybe that brandy that they didn't think they would have at the end of the dinner, things like that. And just release a little bit more and share a bit more and be more whatever in the mood. Yeah, whatever mood it is, and I think that's the step in between that I learned how to become very, very skillful in production, in flavor, in logistics also.
Yeah.
So very scientific minded about it. Of course, it has to be beautiful and delicious, but it was much more on the scale and on the precision about it. And then that career brought me to Taiwan, which is, as to myself, still a wonder at some point.
Yeah, because you're coming close to 7, 8.
So I'm here for 7 years living, but actually my experience with Taiwan goes back to 11 years, because Marcolini came to Taiwan and I was the one in charge of the whole project in Taiwan. So I would come here regularly to do all the shops opening, training the staff and everything. So I got involved with this life without even knowing, to be honest, what was or where it was Taiwan. Without knowing the whole situation with China, without knowing anything about it. Just I was sent, okay, now good luck. But anyways, I met amazing people in this field that kept contact with me, that would even like send me boxes of gifts for my birthday. You know, from people I just met working 1 month here. They would send me a whole package of gifts for my birthday. I was like, wow, that's how special that is, you know, to get from people you would think as strangers that you just worked very intensely with. So I got very much I was touched, I was very emotional every time I was in Taiwan and leaving Taiwan. So I think it just drove me back, and somehow Marie, that was also a former colleague in Marcolini, contacted me and said, I need you, come. And I came, and I live here now. And we did another beginning of a business before, at the very beginning of my arrival here, and then we decided to create our own thing. And I think that's the whole process from being dragged into here. And well, it's not that bad when I say dragged, okay?
We understand.
But I was dragged here. I chose to come. And the fact that eventually I became a consultant is very interesting, because back in Belgium, I just had begun to become an independent, creating my own small company, giving classes and working with events. But of course I was too tiny, I was alone, and I would not really be able to sustain myself. And then this opportunity job came here. I came, it was again corporate, and it was not fitting anymore. We did it very well. Then for some reasons we separated from that corporation, and we decided to become our own selves, because we thought and we saw that there was something needed on the market, Taiwanese market, about the actual knowledge, about the perspective of food. And that's why we became consultants. I began to give classes in different studios, and then within giving those classes, more and more professionals would take my classes. Somehow word spread, and I would have more chefs at my attending my classes than random people, housewives, or people that just want to do cake for fun. Right. So that was really interesting to me, and I thought, oh, that just shows that they don't have this apprenticeship support in Taiwan, and maybe I can help. There are a few schools, but not in pastry. They're based on cooking or bakery, but not so much in pastry. And there are so few, anyways, schools. So people learn from working and taking classes. So that means they have the will to invest their own money to take a class, and that showed me something that was very hopeful. And we decided to go on with that, and not only focus on the classes, but to be those people that can go in your company and help your company to become better, because we can help in whole scale production and creation and business management. And I think that's only the beginning of the story again for the Taiwanese story. But to me it was like, how is it possible that now I become a teacher? I never would have thought I would be a teacher. I was far too humble, I think, about it. I never thought I would be trusted that much. And the Taiwanese market gave me this. The people that I met just were like, wow, you know so much. And that's only then that I realized that I did know so much. And I think they were touched by the fact that it's always been grounded on this truth that you have to take care of what you do. Of course, it's a business, Of course, you have to earn money. Of course, it's all about margins and this and that. But it's not only that. And you have to have an impact on the people you're giving your food to. It's your responsibility. You have to be the guard of that. And that just showed me how mature I became on my path, on my career. That seed that I got when I was maybe 7 years old from my grandmother cooking me lamb and potato puree. And I still remember the flavor right now. Even I'm just mentioning it, like, oh yes, that's one of the best dish ever.
Can you recreate that?
I don't know. I could try, but yeah. It was so good. But that seed just matured into something that I was giving away to some other chefs that needed to have this inspiration, and they were touched by it. And I think that's very empowering to myself also, because then I regained some strength and confidence. Because when I was working in corporate, I was actually not that confident, because I was always just the chef of that big chef. So I was not Pierre Marcolini. I was someone in the kitchen. So you get very skilled, but you don't get very much out there. And for my own proud at that time, it was difficult sometimes, but I never saw it. I didn't see it at that time.
Well, because you were very focused.
I was so focused and dedicated, and very dedicated, very passionate. So it didn't matter, but it did.
In hindsight, now that you're talking.
Now I know that it did matter. Now that I'm out and that I have become that person, I just realized, oh yeah, if I could still be there if maybe they let me become that person I am now. But that bubble did not let me become that person. Yeah. And I think just again, it's coincidence or just fate that I'm here being able to do that. I don't know. You can cherry pick the one you want, but maybe a bit of both.
Yeah. And who knows?
And who knows, exactly. Maybe it would never have happened if I didn't not work there and decided to remove myself from it. And anyways, it's not about recreating the past. It's just acknowledging it, and I think that's very strong with me, because I look back and I'm like proud of what I'm doing, and so that's the arrival in Taiwan. And then through my working with the professionals, I discovered that not a lot of chefs know their own land. Taiwanese chefs, not a lot of them know how to use their own ingredient in pastries, because the influence is so strong from Europe, from France, especially if you do French style pastry. Then they would only think, oh, I have to use only the French cream, French butter, French flour that is imported, this kind of sugar that all the French chefs use, and even imported frozen puree, fruit puree, and all this. So they would just work the same way as those chefs taught them, or that they see on YouTube, or for the World Cup, Pastry World Cup, it's all those sponsors. Oh, these are the very reliable brands. So they would do this, recreate the same here. So somehow they separate themselves from their own land. And I thought that is something that I need to fix, or try to fix, because then you just disconnect yourself. You just become this skilled person, but you don't even know where you're coming from anymore. And of course, maybe it's a bit pretentious from a foreigner to say that in Taiwan, but I thought I am connected to that. I want to pay attention to where my ingredients come from more and more and more. And I want to implement, now that I have this accumulation of knowledge, I want to implement more philosophy in what I do. I want to know my farmers, buy the fruits from them, make sure how organic it is. All of this, I'm one of the very few using Taiwanese sugar in Taiwan, because it's rare to find, because you used to produce a lot of sugar, but now it's been replaced by a lot of other crops, and imported sugar is cheaper than Taiwanese sugar, so they don't use it. But I use it because I'm like, come on, I'm in Taiwan, they have sugar, they have cane, and they make sugar with the canes, so why not use it, right? So this kind of basic rules became my my philosophy. And I thought it was basic, but eventually it's not easy to be so stubborn. It's usually more costly. But as an independent artisan, if I cannot trust the people to buy my products because I'm a local, then there's no point to it. So I have to behave the same. I have to buy local to support those farmers and producers, so that maybe they would support me, or I think it's part of a bigger scale mindset that you need to be giving to get something back. Yeah. So eventually, yes. Now, like we have this whole range of local jam, fruit jam. All the jams that we try to, not only they are local, but we try to work with the small Aboriginal farmers that work far away in the mountains, that need help to promote their fruits, to sell their fruits properly with a fair price, that have had a history that is also difficult. So if I can apply something to that and help, then that's becoming also my pride. But not in terms of being over proud, but just, yes, I if I can do this part, then I will do it. That's it, Yeah. And they love it. They become proud. They develop their own pride about it, because then they see that we promote it that way, and then people know about their small village, 那边的小部落, and they're like, oh, so yeah, that's so kind, because nobody knows about us.
Yeah. How did you find them?
Well, online. Then I also have some Aboriginal friends that just told me, oh yeah, but in our village we have those mangoes, or we have those pineapple, and then a lot of research, a lot of sourcing, a lot of figuring out how to actually get shipped. Luckily we're in Taiwan, so it's not always too complicated, but sometimes they don't have signal in the mountains. It's fun. It's and it's so fulfilling when you actually talk to them and they are proud to say that, I pay so much more care about, like, we have this fig supplier that he's working on getting more and more organic, and so we worked with him last year, and his figs were good, but not quite there yet. And then we contacted him this year again, and then he's like, oh yeah, and you know what, I've been working on my fruit development and production, and now the fruits are so much more flavorful, and he was so proud and so happy to share that with us, and you're like, oh wow. And that's that's the beauty of being able to work with them directly, because otherwise you don't have this connection. And I realized that without this connection, then your food is also different.
Right.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the more you have impact on the people that are going to eat it. And when they eat it, they have this moment of revelation that, oh, so that's possible to get it. You can get it like this, really? And then they see the difference. And then it goes deeper than that, because of course all this has a price. It all comes back to how much you can spend. And I try to not be overpriced, to be fair, so that I can pay fairly the farmers. I can pay myself and my co-workers fairly, and that my customers would not pay an overprice. But of course, this has a price. It cannot be $50 NT. Of course not. It cannot. So I think it's part of a different problem. Now we are in a society that we want to spend more on the car we have, on the vacation not now lately, but so much, but that we would like to have, or the new shoes, or material things that we have around, and we do spend much more on that than on the food, and we tend to disconnect ourselves from this reality, the reality that food is what we need to survive. We just talked about that, so I'm just going to say it again, but we are animals. We need food to survive, and we are surviving. Never forget that. Just if you eat good pastry, you're surviving with a happy thoughts. And that's it. It's that simple. So maybe refunnel the way you spend your money and try to accept this fact that the healthier you eat, the better quality you eat, the happier you eat, actually you don't have to eat that much. So in terms of cost, quantity, quality, you will win in the end. You will win for sure. Your body will tell you so. You will spend less in the hospital bills, in medications, and so on and so on. So it goes much deeper than I began something and then I realized that it has so much more implications, you know? And then I realized I don't go often to the hospital. I don't even have medication at home so much. Maybe a few painkiller pills for the few hangovers I have sometimes. You know, but it's basic things that, yeah. So I think it's very, very, it's linked to a much bigger picture. That
quality of life.
Yeah, and that people, now we're in the social media planet that we work, internet planet that we work in. I love internet. That's where I learn most of my latest skills. But we've lost connection to the reality that we are just here.
Animals surviving.
Yeah, and losing connection to the soil we came from and we're going back to. And I hope that I bring this link in a more clear way, because when you feel this connection to the food, you're like, oh, this is so direct. I don't think there's any other art that is so directly impacting you without even you sometimes noticing. But then you see the difference. And you mentioned that before about yourself, that you try my things and then you're like, oh my God, this is
what it's supposed to
it's
taste like.
supposed to be. And this is something that followed me ever since I began my apprenticeship. I learned to do great things because I was with one of the best pastry master in Geneva. I was very, very lucky. Instinct again, I chose him without knowing him, and I waited 1 more year. I had to wait 1 year to be accepted in his kitchen. So I went to school 1 more year, just waiting. And passed my exams, even though I didn't need to, and then went to work for him. And yeah, I worked for him for 3 years, and he taught me this. And ever since I worked with him, I realized that I would bring cakes, and my family were not very much into sweets. I mean, they had a cake, you know, for the birthday, but it's not that they enjoyed it. And they kept complaining to me like, you're making us difficult now, because we will not have the other kind of cakes anymore. We only want to have your kind of cakes.
Look at that.
You know, and so it began very early in my career that, oh, so that's the power I have. That's my power, you know. I just realized that I even bought a pullover that is written, I'm a pastry chef. What is your superpower?
That's so cute. Do you still have that?
I think I have it somewhere. Yeah, long time ago. Yeah. But yeah, so it's really something, I mention all this because it's something that started very early in my career, and I just kept nourishing this. And it has been a struggle because, like you said in your introduction, my career is my life. And so it's a struggle with me, it's a struggle with some of people around me that don't get that I don't do something else. But at the same time, it's so nice to do it, to be able to do it, to have been given this platform to do it, and now to share it on yours, and to have been able to create my own platform. All these things I would never have dreamed of before. At some point in my career, I didn't even dream to have my own shop. I was like, it's too much work.
It is a lot of work.
But eventually I did go to Shanghai, open my own shop, and I have my own company here at the same time. And so yeah, even though I know the struggle, I keep doing it. And I think that's the message.
Yeah.
When you do things like that, art, emotional work, you have to be ready for that. It's sometimes a heavy price, but if you learn to balance it, if you learn to work, and actually the more I follow my philosophy, the more I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And
you
I learned,
embraced it.
Yeah, and I learned how to stop when I didn't stop before.
Right.
it doesn't mean that I fail. It just means I need a break.
Right.
And then I come back to it.
Right.
So I'm slowly learning. I'm still learning. I hope I will never stop learning.
Yeah.
Actually, last week and the week before, I went to, it's just an extra. We can put that in the bonus.
We can have a bonus. Let me let you finish your bonus. And
yeah.
then I'll have an extra bonus after this one, and then we'll wrap up.
Sounds good. I went on because I love tea, and I always have. And then I discovered Taiwanese tea, and I was like, oh, that's a different story. I was like, wow, this is just next level. Even though I tried Japanese tea, Korean tea, Chinese tea, I was like, oh, well, for me, this is next level. And so this followed me also my whole career in Taiwan, and I did a pastry pairing with tea, either the infusion or with using the tea within the pastries, and so on. And lately, I was like, oh, but I need to have something that is more concrete about this tea thing. So I went on to check about all the certification I can get here in Taiwan. And
Chinese.
That's the the downside of it. But anyway, so I applied and I went to a 4-day class, full days. So it's 8 hours every day of full Mandarin training about the Taiwanese tea and the whole thing about the Taiwanese tea. So even how to grow the trees, the different types of trees, the diseases you can get, the tea tasting, obviously, the different type of tea you have, all of this. And yeah, so I just finished it last weekend. So yeah, but anyways, just to say that, yeah, even now, I'm still learning. And I want to, it's not, of course it's about the certification, because then I can have a stronger consulting, or even if I'm in Europe working, maybe I can be a trustworthy Taiwanese tea specialist for some other companies. So it is an investment, but it's also to satisfy my own curiosity. And I think that's the real message. Yeah. If you stop being curious, then you just lose it. You become a coin in the process. And I don't want to be just a bit of that. I would love to become more and to be maybe part of the machinery instead of just that coin to make the machinery work.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say, in summary, basically, is to stay curious, keep learning, and really follow your instincts, and right?
Yeah, and I think it's follow your instinct is first, but it's tricky because sometimes you make wrong choices. So you have to surround yourself with people that are trustworthy also, which is part of following your instinct.
Right.
Stay curious. You need to be, because if you're not, then you're just seeing such a tiny little fraction of the whole thing. Yeah. Because when you learn how food connects you, then you can learn about DNA, and it's the same, how it works, and you can learn about cosmology, and it's also the same. Everything is connected the same way, just in different scale, So I think, stay curious. Never stop.
Never stop learning.
Yeah, never stop.
I think that's a great way to wrap up.
Yeah. I'm surprised that we didn't stay on for another 2 hours, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
we could, and
I felt like this was probably one of the easiest episode I'm recording, because you did all the talking and I didn't have to kind of cut in and ask you questions and follow up. So, and you did such a great job. So
I'm glad.
Thank you so much, Florian.
My pleasure. And nothing comes by itself. So you triggered that out of me. So thank you also.
Thank you. I will include your social media and your website and the links below, so our listeners can look you up for consultation if they need, if they're abroad, if they live in Taiwan, they can order products online.
Yeah. We did send also things to Hong Kong and nearby countries.
Okay, Southeast Asia.
Might be doable.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we will include that with a little Curito discount, perhaps, maybe.
Yeah, we can organize something for sure.
Right?
Yeah, with
and
promo code or something.
We're very excited to see what else you're going to be working on going forward.
That's actually the big mystery right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, in a transition period at the moment, with, I guess it's a consequence of the pandemic.
Yeah, with life.
We are figuring out the next step for Panoramix Project. I'm figuring out my next step in terms also of location.
But you're always going to still be creating.
I'm going to remain basically the same.
We'll be able to find you, basically.
Or more and more stubborn. You know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.